Hello, students. Good evening. I hope you all are enjoying your life. So, let us discuss history of English or history of English language. So, here I am taking help of this text, but yes, I very next video I am going to make on history of English with my notes also, right? So here I am reading and then explaining what is the history of English language, like how many stages English language has to face, and then now this is the time when uh, technology and uh, with technology number of words are invented, right? So what is history of English we will see. Then I will tell you in my separate notes. Through my separate notes, I'm going to speak, I'm going to share some of the facts of language, how language, any languages flourished, and then how, like, how many languages are being existed in this earth, and then what is the most spoken language, something like this. But here directly I am coming to the history of English. So now let us discuss, let us read together. The history of English language really started with the arrival of three Germanic tribes who invaded Britain during the 5th century AD. So first of all, please take a note that, for example, history of English literature. So history of English literature, the proofs found have been found from 10th century, right? So from 10th century we are able to speak, able to, authors have written from 10th century to uh, till date, right? So that is 10th century till date, the traveling of literature, how literature is flourish, and how many stages literature has to face, and what happened, something that is called history of English literature. Now here history of English language. So the history of English language is, that is, wait a minute, that is something here. The history of English language really started with the arrival of three Germanic tribes. So please take care whenever you talk. So then from here we get proof, and that's why we will talk about, authors had talked about the arrival of three Germanic tribes, right? Who invaded Britain. Germanic tribe invaded Britain during the 5th century AD. From here, 5th century AD, we get proof that how English is developed, right? These three tribes are Angels, Saxon, and Jutes. Please take care. These were the Germanic tribes, Angel, Saxon, and Jutes, right? Crosses the North Sea from what today is Denmark and northern Germany, right? So these three Germanic tribe, Angel, Saxon, and Jute, came to Denmark, right, and northern Germany. They came from uh, from outside, right? Now then they came to Britain, right? They invaded Britain. So Britain, and then that they cross, and today it is Denmark. Okay. Now at the same time, the inhabitants of Britain spoke Celtic language, right? Very interesting that Britain's inhabitants, they used to speak Celtic language, and then these tribes came. So definitely we have, suppose if we see the history of India, then 200 years that Mughals and then number of invaders came to India, and then influence, that's a influence of other religion and other people, definitely they left in India, and that's why number of words we have taken in even Hindi and in other languages from some of the words are Urdu, some of words Sanskrit and English words, and so this way that's a local like people or inhabitants of Britain, they used to speak Celtic language. But when these three Germanic tribes came and invaded, attacked to Britain, so what happened? Most of the Celtic speakers were pushed west and north by invaders. So they were attacker, and then so what happened after attacking into the Britain? Most of the Celtic speakers were pushed west and north by the invaders. So what happened? They pushed, or they they attacked on the west and north, and then many speakers, they just have they just have left the place. For example, many Kashmiri Pandit migrated here and there. Similarly, these Celtic speakers were pushed west, west and north, and then they settle there, mainly into what is now Wales, Scotland and Ireland, right? So then they Celtic speaker, they just settle in Wales and Scotland and Ireland, right? Here they settle. So can you understand? Then tribes came, they pushed away, tribes, invaders came to Britain, and then they attacked on Britain. And at that time, local people then they used to speak Celtic language, but Celtic speakers just ran away, we can say that, and they settle in Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Now, the angels came from England. We have seen the angels, Saxon and Jude. So the angels came from England, and their language was English. This one, English, right? From which the words England and English are derived. From this English, England and English are derived, right? So that's the beginning of history of English language. Then through map they have explained that this is the Britain, and then Angles, Saxon and Jute, they attacked, they crossed the North Sea, and then these were the Germanic invasions of 5th century. Please take care of 5th century, and they attacked on Britain and then Wales, England and Scotland. Right? These are the three main places. Okay. Now, so Germanic invaders entered Britain, right? They entered Britain on the east and north coast in the 5th century. So that's the east and north coast, right? From the from there they attacked, right? Now first period was Old English. Please take care of the time. That's a 450 century, that's a to 1100. The invading Germanic tribes spoke similar language. So then the tribes spoke similar languages, which in Britain developed into what we now call Old English. So these Germanic tribes developed the language which is called Old language. Old English, sorry. Old English did not sound or look like English today. Old English is very, very different from today's English. Native English speaker now would have great difficulty understanding Old English. Even native English speakers are not able to understand Old English. Nevertheless, despite about half of the most commonly used words in modern English have Old English roots. But then, Old English is and New English, Old English and Modern English, right? It's just opposite. That's the Old English and it's a Modern English, just opposite. But reality is that the most of the words have been taken in modern English from Old English. That is also reality. Okay, the words be, they have given example. The words be, strong, water, for example, derived from Old English. So these are the be, strong, water are the Old English. Old English was spoken until around 1100. So this was the period from 450 to 1100, right? Now, so this is the example of Old English, right? Beowulf, part of this is a poem, right? Poem's name is Beowulf, Beowulf, and that's a poem. And then this poem is not able to understand much. So this was the Old English, right? This is the Old English. Okay, now second part is Middle English. Duration is 1100 to 1500, right? In 16 10 6 in 10 uh, 1066, William the Conqueror, right? He was the person, William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, part of modern France. It was William the Conqueror, the Duke of the Normandy. Now it's modern France, right? Invaded and conquered England. So this person, William, conquered the England. The new conquerors called Normans, right? And then they were known as Normans, brought with the with them a kind of French. They were speaking English, and then a new language was introduced there, that is French. Here modern English, and that's Old English, right? And then Old English, and then some new words came, that is French. Okay, so that is kind of French, which became the language of royal court. For example, the language of royal people is still, it is no, it is said that they speak English much rather than Hindi. Similarly, French was the status language or language of royal court at that time, and the ruling and business class. So that's these people who were ruling, a royal court, ruling people and business class, they speak French. So that shows the standard. Elite class used to speak French. Now, for a period, there was a kind of linguistic class division where the lower class spoke English and upper class spoke French. So, class division was there because of language. So, lower class used to speak English and upper class they used to speak French at that time. Now, in the 14th century, English became dominant in Britain again. Old English, it was English. Then French, because of Norman came, so they brought French, and French Normans, they Normans spoke French. So they spoke French, right? And then it was the elite language, French. They brought French, and French was the elite class language. And this way society is divided into two: lower class and upper class. Upper class speak French, lower class they used to speak English. Right now, in 14th century, English became dominant in Britain again. But then in 14th century, English again became important language, but with many French words added. No doubt English had come back, but with some French words. This language is called Middle English, right? It was the language of great poet Chaucer, 13 to 1340 to 1400, means 60 years, right? But it would still be difficult for native English speakers to understand today. So Chaucer cannot be read fully. Chaucer's text is not. However, Chaucer is known as Geoffrey Chaucer is known as modern father of modern English, modern father of literature, right? But then at the same time, Chaucer Chaucer's the text is not so easy to understand, right? So this is Chaucer's, they have given example, and here this is the Middle English, and this text is written by Chaucer in Middle English. So that's the text written by Chaucer. Somewhat we can say that in our, right, for he fill something we can be with his first soothe, right, something smooth me on. So that's a legible, but that is written by Chaucer. Chaucer, right? Geoffrey Chaucer. Okay. Now, next is modern English. Modern English is divided into early modern English and late modern English. So what's the early modern English? Today, the end of Middle English, a sudden and distinct change in pronunciation, the great vowel shift. Sorry, towards the end of the Middle English, when Middle English was and modern English came, a sudden and distinct change in pronunciation. So pronunciation was changed, but it was sudden change. And then the great vowel shift. Why? Because what's the change? That's the vowel shift. Started with vowel being pronounced shorter and shorter. Means uh, give. So that's a give. Means that is example of like this is longer and this I is smaller, and this is longer, this is small, right? This is longer and this is small. So for example, sheep, this is sheep, this is ship, this is shoot, this is put, this is caught, this is hot, right? So longer sound, these are the example of shorter, and shorter means no dot, double dot, shorter. From the 16th century, the British had contact with many people from around the world, because development and language very important, and then transport, communication, sources of communication were being increased day by day, and that's why in 16th century there's a modern English. In 16th century, British had contacted with many people. The more different kind of people we contact, the more vocabulary and different words we are going to learn. Same happen here. And then this and the renaissance of classical learning meant that many new words and phrases entered the language. This is the very important. Many new words and phrases entered the language, and the invention of printing, very important, crucial, plays a very crucial role. That's a invention of printing. Invention of printing also meant that there was there was now a common language in print, because what was the resources, so that's a very limited people. uh, Text can text was not reachable to every people because of limited people. First of all, manual, and then second time then typewriter came, so then writing through typewriter, copies were like typed material was typed. But as printing press came into existence, then the text was reachable to common people. That's a breakthrough of human beings life. And then books became cheaper. That's a very important reason. And more people learn it to read, so then they were able to understand, able to learn. And then printing also brought standardization to English. And because of printing, then gradually standardization came. Spelling, grammar became fixed, because in the beginning that happened. It happens that in the beginning, when any organization is open, anything started, so then in the beginning many trial and errors are there, and one day gradually then we come into conclusion, and then we make some rules and regulation. Similarly, it happens here in the language. That's a spelling, grammar became fixed after long time, means 450 to that's a 16th century. It's a long time. And after trial error, new word, something something, and then one day then like not one day, but after some time, spelling and grammar became fixed, right? So that is somewhat static. And then the dialect of London, where most publishing houses were became the standard. And then mistakes were not accepted. And then people were more and more polished. And then the more people learn it, that's why discussions and beautiful discussions were there. And this way uh, standardization came into existence. And in 1604, the first English dictionary was published. Very big news that in 1604, first English dictionary, because words were like words were written here and there and different texts, but words were not compiled. And then in 1604, first English dictionary was published. So that's a breakthrough. That's a great news too, for like for people of that era, right? Now, that's a they are just Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. This Hamlet was written this way. So they are just given example. That's a Hamlet written in early modern English by Shakespeare. That is, this is. But again, many words if you see, you will not be able to understand. Okay. Now, late modern English, 18th century to present, right? Till date, 18th century till date. That is, the main difference between early modern English and late modern English is vocabulary. Late modern English has many more words arising from two principal factors. Firstly, the Industrial Revolution. Earlier we have seen what the revolution, printing press, then Industrial Revolution, and of course technology created a need for new words, right? So that if new technology, so we have to give name something. So that was the demand of need of our, and that's why new words are invented, and are being invented and will be invented. So that was the first reason, and that's why modern languages flourished, right? And now second reason, this was the first reason, that industrial revolution and technology, and second reason was British Empire as its height covered one quarter of earth's surface, right? So that's a British Empire was very big empire. And the English language adopted foreign words from many countries. And English is not pure English, it is in English language very new words or foreign words have been incorporated, right? Now, so this is something, history of English language. Very superficially we discuss, but this is the base. Now, varieties of English. You know that there are varieties of English. From around 16th century, the English colonization of North America resulted in the creation of distinct American variety in English, that is called American English, and some English pronunciations and words froze when they reached America. In some ways, American English is more like English of Shakespeare, because Shakespeare is a still uh, hero of in English literature, right? So he was the um, leader. He was the person whom people would like to follow. So that's a English of Shakespeare, or American English, we can say that. Then modern British English is, so what, in some ways American English is more like the English of Shakespeare than modern British English. So that is more and more what Shakespeare has written, they have started speaking. Now, some expressions that the British call Americanism are the fact or original British expression that were preserved in the colonies while lost for a time in Britain. For example, trash for rubbish, loan as a verb instead of land, right? So that is loan and land, right? And then trash and rubbish, fall for autumn, right? Another example, frame up was re-imported in Britain through Hollywood gangsters movies. So that's the movies, it leaves very big impact in our speaking. So these are the words are replaced, right? Then Spanish also had an influence of American English, like they have influence of American English, and then they have started rubbish, so that's a trash for rubbish, and loan for lend. So these words are now more common, trash and then loan, right? Then fall, right? Then framework, something. And then similarly Spanish also felt influence of language in American language. Spanish also had an influence on American English and subsequently British English, with words like canyon, range, stampede, vigilant being example of Spanish words that entered English. Now that's a stampede and all, vigilant, these are the part of English dictionary through the settlement of American West. French words through Louisiana, and West African words through the slave trade also influence American English, and so to an extent British English, right? So that's a French words, and then French African words, because of communication, because of migration from here to there, and that's why language changes. And then language, English languages mix of so many other languages. Now today American English is particularly influential due to USA dominance of cinema, right? So now American English is more popular because of USA's dominance of cinema, television, popular music, trade, technology, including internet. But there are many other varieties of English around the world, including example Australian English, New Zealand English, Canadian English, South African English, Indian English, and Caribbean English, right? So this is something, history of English literature. Now, Germanic families of language. So these are the Germanic, they cross the north, west, east, and here English, then these kind of languages, Trokian and all. So that is something which we are going to discuss later on. Now, brief chronology of English language, right? English language, that is first 55 BC, Roman invasion to Britain by Julius Caesar, right? So that's a local inhabitant speak Celtish. We discussed already Roman invasion and occupation, beginning of Roman rule of Britain, then Roman withdrawal from Britain complete, right? And these are the this is the time, right here, and then settlement of Britain by Germanic invaders. So Roman withdrawal, Roman invasion and occupation, beginning of Roman rule of Britain, but then खदेड़ना बोलते हैं ना, तो then they came and then they have rooted out Roman, and then they started living, and then they started ruling Germanic tribes or invaders, and they settle in Britain, right? And then uh, earliest known Old English inscriptions. I told you that these are the proof by which we can guess that what happened, how any language is developed, right? So in this era, 450 to 480, Old English was, that's are known as this is the time. Then William the Conqueror, Duke of Normandy, invades the England, right? And then 1150, earliest surviving manuscripts in Middle English. So that was the manuscript written by hand, and that was the Middle English, right? And then English replaced Latin as the language of instruction. Latin, the language of instruction in most schools in this time, right? And then 1362, English replaces French. Very important, English replaces French as the language of law, right? And English is used in parliament for the first time. Then Chaucer starts writing Canterbury Tales, important work of Chaucer. 124 poems are there, but just 24 are legible in these Canterbury Tales. Number of tales, 124 tales are there, right? Now, Great Wall shift begin. That's a Great Wall, and short wall they started using from 14th century. Then 1476, William Caxton established the first English printing press. Very important, William Caxton, very important. And printing, that's a very important, right? That then invention of printing press by William Caxton, right? Then Shakespeare was born, again next breakthrough of life in 1564. Then table alphabetical, the first English dictionary, right? Very good, alphabetically first English dictionary in launched in 1604, right? Again very important. Then the first permanent English settlement in the New World, right? So permanent settlement in New World, that is the Jamestown, and is established. Then in 1616, Shakespeare dies. Shakespeare's first portfolio, that is first folio, is published, right? And then the first daily English language newspaper, first daily English newspaper was Daily Courant, in published in London, right? English newspaper. Then again very important, Samuel Johnson in 1755 publishes English dictionary. First dictionary came, but then Samuel Johnson publishes his English dictionary. That was the first English dictionary. Then Samuel Johnson again published his dictionary, and then Thomas Jefferson writes American Declaration of Independence. Then Britain abandons its colonies in what is later to became the USA. So they abandoned, they left, and then that is right now known as USA. Then Webster publishes his American. Then Webster launched one dictionary in 1828. Then the British Broadcasting Corporation is found. That was again the chain British Broadcasting, because communication was boosted up at the time. And then Oxford English Dictionary was published in 1928. That is also very famous dictionary. And this is the something about history of English literature. So these 3 years you have to take care. Old English 450 to 1100 AD, है ना? And then second is Middle English, that's a 1100 to 1500. Then Modern English you have to remember. That's a Modern English is divided into two, 1500 to 1800. And then Late Modern English, that's a 1800 till date, right? So this is we have learned together. And then finally we got to know that it was started from Germanic tribes. They invaded Britain, and then at the time Britain used to speak, like local inhabitants, they used to speak Celtic. And then this was the first. Then the journey was started, English language. And then French came, and it was the time then French became the language of elite class, and English for lower people. But then again English came into existence and powerful language. It became powerful language in the period of Middle English. And Chaucer was born. Then Chaucer has uh, written text, or that's a, it is said that that was the starting of modern time. Then Shakespeare born. And then English language standardized by Shakespeare. It is said that people of like English, so English of Shakespearean English, that was the era, was known as Shakespearean English, because text was only the books were the resources of entertainment, resources of knowledge and all. And printing press was the very big breakthrough. Then it was reachable to poor people, and everyone's hand, that's books were reachable, and that's why they were able to understand English, Bible, and other things. And then they start learning, and they were educated. And then modern period, which is divided into two classes. The early modern period. The early modern period, early text is still some of the texts are not legible. But late modern period, where we talk every day, we talk about I will Google you, and googling is the best remedy, or something other, WhatsApp, I will WhatsApp you, something. So every day new words are being coined, new phrases are coined, new fantabulous, right? Education, something. So these kinds of words, and then invented day by day. And this way, this is the time of modern language, right? So thank you so much. Bye bye.